you won't believe what Estonia is doing at Russian border. Estonia is one of the 3 Baltic countries in Europe, along with Latvia and Lithuania. They were all once part of the Soviet Union, but are now independent nations. Well, as we all know, Russia invaded Ukraine, and this sparked outrage across the world. And many people have been wondering why the small Baltic nation of Estonia would threaten the Russian Federation, a nuclear power with the largest landmass in the world. Well, that is what we will find out in today's video, so make sure to watch it till the end. Also, please like and subscribe for more such interesting videos. But first, let's start with some quick facts about Estonia. The population of Estonia is just above 1 million and covers an area of around 45,000 square kilometers. Tallinn is its capital city, and the official language is Estonian. But before we begin, remember to give us a thumbs up to inspire us. In the year 2004, Estonia became the first former Soviet republic to join both NATO and the European Union. This was seen as a major geopolitical event at the time, as it marked the first time that Russia had lost one of its Soviet territories. It was also a symbolic victory for the West, as it demonstrated that the Soviet sphere of influence was collapsing. The decision to join NATO and the EU was a controversial one. Many Estonians were nervous about the reaction of their powerful neighbor Russia. However, they were ultimately convinced that the benefits of joining the Western alliance outweighed the risks. As it turns out, their fears were well-founded, as Russia has since become increasingly aggressive towards its former territories. In 2014, Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine and has since supported separatist movements in the country. This has led to a sharp deterioration in relations between Russia and the Baltic States, which has only been exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Despite the risks, however, Estonia's leaders have stood firm in their support for Ukraine and have provided military and financial aid to the country. Estonia shares a 290 kilometers long border with Russia, and most of it is covered by the Narva River, which flows into the Gulf of Finland. This section of the border is largely defined by natural features, including the river and a chain of lakes. As a result, the number of crossing points is relatively low, with only 2 land crossings, 2 rail crossings, and 2 ferry routes. The largest crossing point is the road and rail bridge over the Narva River near the cities of Narva in Estonia and Evangorod in Russia. The second crossing point is a smaller road and rail bridge over the Peipsi or Peipus in the southeastern part of the border. Both bridges are relatively close to the Russian border, with the Narva River crossing about 70 kilometers from the border, and the Peipsi or Peipus crossing about 30 kilometers from the border. There are no other road or rail connections between Estonia and Russia, although there are some unpaved forest roads that can be used for driving or biking. These roads are not suitable for heavy vehicles and are mostly used by hunters, fishermen, or people traveling to remote areas. Apart from these 2 crossing points, the border between Estonia and Russia is largely uninhabited, with large areas covered by forests and swamps. There are no towns or villages located directly on the border, and the nearest larger urban areas are Narva and Sillamäe in Estonia and Ezangorod and St. Petersburg in Russia, due to the lack of infrastructure. The vast majority of people who live near the border do so in either Estonia or Russia, with very few exceptions. So how is Estonia defending itself against Russian aggression? Well, the country has taken several measures to protect itself from potential threats coming from Russia. One of the most important steps that Estonia has taken is to maintain a strong military presence along its border with Russia. The Estonian Defense Forces have established several observation and surveillance posts along the border to monitor any potential movements or activities on the Russian side. Additionally, Estonia has invested in modernizing its border infrastructure, including the construction of new fences, surveillance systems, and other security measures to prevent illegal entry into the country. Furthermore, Estonia has actively sought support from its allies, particularly from NATO, to enhance its border security. NATO has provided funding and military assistance to Estonia to help it improve its border monitoring and defense capabilities. For instance, NATO has helped Estonia to establish a joint military command center to coordinate border security efforts, as well as to provide training and education to Estonian border guards and soldiers. Moreover, Estonia has been working closely with its neighboring countries, Latvia and Lithuania, to coordinate their border security efforts. The 3 Baltic states have implemented joint patrols and information sharing mechanisms to monitor the situation along their borders with Russia. By cooperating, the Baltic states aim to strengthen their collective security and to send a unified message to Russia. Despite these efforts, some critics have argued that Estonia's measures to secure its border with Russia are not comprehensive enough. They argue that Estonia needs to invest more resources into border security, and that it should consider further restricting movement across the border. However, Estonian officials have defended their approach, arguing that it is appropriate given the current situation. They maintain that the measures that they have taken are sufficient to protect the country's security, while still allowing for some degree of cooperation and trade with Russia. Now let's talk about the current situation at the Russian border. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, the situation at Estonia's border with Russia has been tense. The invasion has heightened concerns about potential Russian aggression towards the Baltic States, leading to increased monitoring and security measures along the border. One of the key developments at the border has been the increase in the number of Russian soldiers and military vehicles spotted near the border area. This has raised concerns about potential cross-border incursions or other hostile activities by Russian forces. In response, Estonia has increased its own military presence along the border to monitor the situation closely. Another notable development has been the increase in the number of refugees and asylum seekers crossing from Russia into Estonia. Since the invasion of Ukraine, thousands of Russians have fled to Estonia to escape the conflict, which has led to a surge in asylum applications. The Estonian government has responded by providing temporary accommodation and other forms of assistance to those seeking refuge. Additionally, the Estonian authorities have been working to counter potential Russian misinformation and propaganda aimed at the Estonian public. With the heightened tensions and the influx of Russian nationals into the country, there have been concerns about the potential spread of disinformation and other forms of psychological warfare. It's also worth noting that the situation at the border has had an impact on the local economy. Increased security measures and the reduced movement across the border have affected businesses and residents who rely on trade and other forms of exchange with Russia. The economic impact of the situation is still being assessed, but it is clear that the border closure has had some negative consequences for the local economy. Overall, the situation at Estonia's border with Russia remains tense and unpredictable. The Estonian government is closely monitoring the situation and has been taking measures to protect the country's security and the well-being of its citizens. It remains to be seen how the situation will develop in the coming weeks and months. To further defend itself against Russian aggression, Estonia has recently started building a wall along its border with Russia. The wall is being constructed out of concrete and metal and is 8.6 kilometers long. It is unclear how much the barrier will cost, but the Estonian government has said that it is necessary to protect the country's security. The Estonian government has been considering building the wall for several years, but it was not until recently that they decided to go ahead with the project. The decision to build the wall was met with some opposition from the public, but the government argues that it is necessary to protect the country from potential threats. Estonia is a member of NATO and the European Union, but it still feels threatened by its powerful neighbor, Russia. The wall is being built in addition to other security measures that Estonia has taken, such as increasing its defense spending and joining the US-led ballistic missile defense program. The construction of the wall is expected to take several months, and it is not clear when it will be completed. However, the Estonian government is committed to finishing the project as soon as possible. Once the wall is finished, it will be patrolled by soldiers and other security personnel to prevent any illegal activities. It remains to be seen how effective the wall will be in protecting Estonia from Russian aggression. However, the Estonian government is committed to taking all necessary measures to protect the country's security. Well, folks, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more such amazing videos. Till then, stay tuned and keep watching.